All right, so we're in our garage, and you're probably wanting to turn your garage door or some kind of wall into a giant dry erase board. And we're gonna be showing you how to do that today using acrylic. And you can do that. We're in the garage gym because we have a training studio here that we like to have, and we want to be able to write stuff on there. So we're gonna show you how you can take your garage door looking from something like this, you know, nothing super crazy, just a normal garage door. And it can start being and it can start to look something like this. So you're gonna need a couple of things for this. So first thing, obviously, you're gonna need some kind of acrylic. So we actually got a thin piece of acrylic. You can find it on Home Depot. That's where we got it from, but we bought it online. And little tip, this thing's fragile. You want to get something that's pretty thin. You want a thinner piece, okay? Because we don't want to put too much weight on our garage door as it's being pulled up. So we want to try and keep it as light as we can. But the only thing, when you order it, okay, there's a couple shipments that we got in that were like it was broken. It was fragile. So we had to return it 2 times. And hopefully it should come in. This one came in good shape. There is a little crack on the corner, but I don't want to have to, you know, it's not a big deal for me. So we're just gonna go with it. But just keep in mind that it's fragile. And hopefully if you can pick it up in store, then you can see if you can pick it up in store. That way you don't need to worry about it breaking in shipping. The first one we actually ordered, though, we ordered 2 sheets. So they rolled those together so it was a little thicker. So those came all right. I did measurements wrong, so I needed to order an extra one. And when I bought just 1 sheet by itself, there wasn't that extra sheet kind of supporting it. So I made it a little harder during shipping, and it would crack. So I'm thinking that maybe if you can order more, then it'll come intact. But we got refunded for it. So, and they sent us some new ones. Okay, and another few things that you're gonna need that's gonna help is obviously you're gonna want some measuring tape. You're gonna need to take your measurements. First time I measured my garage, I got the measurements wrong. That's why we had to order another one. But grab yourself some measuring tape, okay? That's gonna be able to help you out. You're also gonna want a box cutter. That's how we're gonna start cutting this acrylic. To be able to draw things right, you wanna make sure you get your lines. We're gonna use a pen. You can use a dry erase marker or something, but this is kind of this is just a marker. You're gonna want, I'm using some kind of straight edge. So this one, I'm using this one because it has a 90-degree angle. I wanna make sure the corners are a good 90 degrees. So I'm gonna be using this. I'm also gonna be using a longer ruler. This isn't a yardstick, but if you have a yardstick, I would use one of those, or something that's long and straight so you can draw the lines. And we also got some of this. We have an adhesive. So this is a spray-on adhesive that we're gonna be using as well. This is high-strength contact adhesive. So this is just a spray-on. We're gonna use a spray-on to the garage. That way that acrylic is able to stick on there. If you don't wanna spray the garage, maybe there's some other alternatives you guys can use. Something that can help it stick on there, but that's what we're gonna be using for us today. Whew. All right, so what we did, we took the cardboard we took some cardboard, and it gave me the cardboard that it shipped in, and we're actually gonna use this to lay on the bottom, put the acrylic on top of that, so then when we get to cutting it, we're not gonna cut into our flooring. We also took our measurements down, so we took our measurements down. So we took our measuring tape, we measured the distance that we need, our length and our width to be able to draw that out and cut out what we need. So what we're gonna be doing for us today here is 71.5 by 20.5 inches. So we have the first part cut out. I'm gonna show you how we're actually cutting this out. So to cut this things out, first thing we're gonna do is actually mark it. So I'm gonna be using the tape measure since I have the measurements. I'm gonna use my marker, and then also a straight edge, and then the yardstick or the ruler. So here, first thing that we do actually is I go on the edge, I get my measurement, and whatever measurements you have, yours may be different than mine, but mine is, what is mine? Okay, so mine is actually gonna be 20 inches, 0.5 high. So I'll get that, make sure I'm all set. So I'm gonna start right there on the edge. I'm gonna get it a mark. All right, so That's the easy one. The next one I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go 71.5 across. So one of the things that I noticed is sometimes we may have, we have the right measurement across, but I wanna make sure it's not at a weird angle, because sometimes we'll get the measurement, but we'll be at a weird angle. So to make sure it's nice and straight, it's a straight line versus a slope, I'm gonna make sure I have my straight edge. I'm gonna measure it from the bottom actually, right? That's what I did. Measure it from the bottom here. 71.5. So these are just the measurements I'm using that are for my garage door. So for yours, it may be different. Now I'm at 71.5 there. And next, we're gonna do 20. So I'm gonna take that mark I just made, and I'm gonna measure 21.5 or 20.5 up. So you take your measurements, you bring it up. So this is at 20.5 right there. And I'm gonna be using my straight edge, or the right angle that I have. So I use that right angle and I make sure it's a right angle, because I don't want any waves up and down on my line. 20.5. Make sure it's nice and even. So same thing how I talked about, we wanted a straight line. What I'm gonna be doing to make sure that there's no curving in our lines is I'm gonna make dots all the way across with the whole thing. So the same thing I did here, it's 20.5 inches to the top. So make sure there, got a straight edge there. I'm over here, 20.5. I have my other straight edge, and make sure I got a good 90-degree angle. So you can use anything that's 90 degrees. Yeah, you see? So now this one was off a little bit. So I would have had a weird angle there. 20.5. There we go. And you do the same thing all the way across. All right, so now we got our lines, we got our dots. Now, next we're just gonna go ahead, make sure those are right. We're just gonna trace them now, from dot to dot. All right, so now this is the trickier part. So make sure you have something underneath it, because we're gonna start cutting now. So you have your box cutter. Remember, this is laying on top of a piece of cardboard or something else that you may be able to go and use. But we're gonna actually start our cuts. So I'm using this. This is the straight edge I'll be using. I also used a yardstick, but this is what we had. So we're gonna have this. Now, I made a few mistakes when I was cutting the first few. So if you make mistakes, be ready in case you make some mistakes. If you really need to be super on it, you know, there may be some rougher edges. It's not a perfect cut, but we can get close. So what you wanna make sure we do is once it's there, we're just gonna make sure, do our very best for it to stay lined up. Okay, so I'm gonna put some pressure on it, and I like to use my knee, I'll put my knee on it too. So now it's there. Now we're gonna do our very best to make sure that this doesn't move from where we're at. And we start our first cut. All right, so. And at first, it's just gonna feel very smooth, okay? But then it'll start feeling rougher later on. And what you wanna make sure we do, now we're gonna try and dig in a little bit and put some pressure in it as we cut. You see? So that's how I like to do the cuts, because that way I can get it done and it actually starts, I know it's cutting through and you'll feel it. So you kind of just add some pressure and then really just try and dig in there. Another thing too, while you're cutting this, since we're adding quite a bit of pressure and force as we're cutting, we have to make sure we watch out so we don't cut ourselves or anything, because it can slip. The acrylic is a little slippery. So I wanna make sure we put a lot of pressure on this. This has a little lip to protect my thumb. But if you have, whatever you're using, make sure you protect yourself. If you gotta wear gloves, wear gloves. But I don't want any of us getting cut trying to do this, because we're being pretty aggressive with this blade. So that's something that we gotta be careful and watch for, since we're being pretty aggressive with this. All right, so we pretty much finished cutting it. We might have a few spots that are still a little connected, like right here. So we have a few spots, and that might end up like in random parts of it. So sometimes we just have to go over it a little bit. So what we're gonna do, that happens, just go to that same spot, go over it a little bit. Sometimes what you can even do is just take it, get it on the spot, and then just kind of punch through it a little bit. But you have to make sure we punch through it enough. If it's longer, then just go ahead, just cut it. Oh, looks like we got it done. All right, so I finished cutting the last bit of the acrylic to finish up these last few pieces here. So also keep in mind, I did cut it, but sometimes you see how I get some of these, I get these edges, they're a little jagged sometimes, so they're not perfect cuts. So it's okay for what I'm using it for, because they're gonna be sliding up inside these things, so you won't really see it too much. But if this is something you're putting on a wall, you might want to think of getting a frame or something to frame the outside of this. Maybe not a full-on frame, but just something you can put on the outside to kind of make it look a little better if yours ends up, you know, looking a little jagged like this. Okay, so just keep that stuff in mind. Cool, so now we're on the final portion. Now all we gotta do, with our cutout piece of acrylic, we're gonna just take this and we're gonna use our adhesive. So I'm using this, and it's been working pretty good. All right, this the contact adhesive, you can get this at Home Depot or any other, I think, basically hardware store or online. But if you can find this is what I've been using, and it's working pretty good. A 3M high strength contact adhesive. So first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna shake it up. Whew. I'm just gonna make sure I get a nice good coat on this. I kind of want to, for me, I'm kind of using a little bit more than I feel like I need to, because I want to make sure that when this garage is open and this stuff, I don't want anything to fall off of it, especially since it may be over people's heads. So I'm gonna put a generous amount on it. So that's why I needed to get an extra bottle of this, spray of this. So here we go. All right, now when I put this, for me in the garage, I gotta bend it a little bit. So this stuff can bend a little, it can bend a bit, but I wanna be careful to not make sure I bend it too much, because it still is kind of fragile. So keep that in mind, you don't wanna just do anything, but it can stand up quite a bit, because it does bend. All right, let's see, wow. And now we're just gonna add some pressure, put this on. So I want to make sure I get all the edges down. Then you go ahead, you just pat all this stuff down until it's able to dry off a little bit. So just make sure it sticks pretty fast, but just to be sure, I'm gonna put a little bit extra pressure and keep holding it for a little bit, for maybe, I don't know, about 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes. All right, also another thing, so another reason why I'm using this is because it's heat resistant. It says heat, I don't know if it'll focus in on that, but it says it's heat resistant on this. So if you use an adhesive and it's on the garage where the sun might hit it, want to make sure we have an adhesive that, you know, when it gets hot on the backside of it, that it's not gonna kind of just fall off and melt or whatever. So that's why, another reason why I'm using this one. So that's another thing you can keep in mind as well. Last bit that we're gonna do, there's a film on top of this, and once that adhesive is all dried up, this is from yesterday, by the way, so I left it on, before I pulled this film off, I left it on to dry for about a day. So now we just go ahead and pull it out. Whoop. I'm holding on to it too, just in case. Now it's all done. We have the film off. Now that your dry erase is ready, we're gonna go ahead. You have your markers. Now this is acrylic, so a black acrylic. So I'm using a wet erase marker instead of a normal dry erase. So this one's a wet erase if you're going with black, okay? So now all we do, you test it out. Whoop. And now we have it all set up and ready to go. And it dries too, so I just have my paper towel. And whoop, just like that, okay? Rub it off. And then we're good to go. Alrighty, y'all. That's all we got today, so thanks for watching the video. I hope it's able to help you guys. and we'll continue to keep you guys updated with all the improvements we're making in this home gym training facility. Okay, so other than that, God bless. We'll see you guys next time. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.